What if the person you were meant to care for most was also the person you were forbidden to love? It was a question Ngozi often asked herself during long nights in a tiny rented room in Surulere, Lagos. The question had no easy answer, and yet, deep in her heart, she felt she already knew. Some loves were forbidden, not because they were wrong, but because the world refused to understand them. Ngozi Nwafo was 26, small in stature but mighty in spirit. Her skin, a warm cocoa brown, glowed faintly under the dim light of her cramped apartment. She had a sharp mind, the kind that could solve office problems faster than her colleagues. Yet she carried herself humbly, aware that life had a way of humbling the proud. Her mornings were a blur of traffic jams, hot buses, and the occasional street hawker yelling, "Water, suya, water," before she could even finish her prayers. She worked odd jobs before finally landing at Okafor Holdings, a private investment firm in Victoria Island. It was supposed to be another temporary gig, another stepping stone, but life had other plans. From the first day, she had heard whispers about her boss, Chike Okafor. They said he was a man who had everything: wealth, power, intelligence, but had been abandoned by the world. Friends had betrayed him. Lovers had fled. And then, tragedy had struck. An accident 5 years ago had left him in a wheelchair, paralyzed from the waist down. People avoided him. They feared him. They pitied him. Some mocked him. But Ngozi, perhaps because she had faced her own share of ridicule growing up in a single-parent home, felt nothing but a quiet curiosity and inexplicably a flicker of respect. Her first encounter with Chike Okafor was unforgettable. The office was silent that morning, the fluorescent lights humming softly above as she approached his corner office, ID badge in hand. "Good morning, sir," she said, bowing slightly. "I'm Ngozi, your new assistant." Chike's gaze lifted slowly from the files on his desk. He was a striking man, even seated. Dark eyes, sharp jawline, and a presence that commanded attention even while confined to a wheelchair. He looked at her without a word, his expression unreadable. "Sit," he said finally, voice firm but controlled. "We'll see if you can keep up here. I don't tolerate mistakes." It was not a welcome she had expected, but as she watched him wheel to the window, staring out at a bustling Lagos skyline, she sensed an unspoken loneliness behind his pride. He was a man abandoned by fate itself, and yet he bore his misery with quiet dignity. Ngozi quickly realized that the office was a battlefield of gossip and silent judgments. Some colleagues whispered behind Chike's back, "Ian, see that man. All the money, yet no legs to walk with. Knackers they follow." Others mocked Ngozi quietly, warning her to stay away from him. But Ngozi ignored the whispers. She treated Chike with respect, and gradually he noticed. She greeted him every morning, remembered his preferences, and sometimes simply sat quietly beside him, letting him work in peace. It was small gestures, unnoticed by most, that began to break the walls Chike had built around his heart. One late evening, as Ngozi stayed behind to finish filing documents, she noticed Chike struggling to reach a stack of reports. "Sir, let me help you with that," she said gently. Chike looked at her, surprise flickering across his face. "Thank you," he said quietly. It was the first time he had spoken to anyone in that way in years, without sarcasm, without defense, without a wall of anger. That small moment marked the beginning of something neither of them expected. Slowly, trust began to grow. Slowly, they began to talk, not about work, not about money, but about life, dreams, and regrets. Ngozi soon learned Chike had given up on treatments years ago. Doctors, herbalists, prayers, all had failed. He had accepted his paralysis as his permanent fate, and most people had left him to it. But Ngozi refused to give up. Quietly, secretly, she began researching. She visited physiotherapists, consulted traditional healers, and even prayed in solitude for guidance. She learned about muscle stimulation, diet changes, and daily exercises that could, perhaps, help Chike regain strength. It was dangerous, though. She knew meddling with medical conditions could backfire. And yet, she felt compelled. If the world has rejected him, I will not, she whispered to herself one night, hands pressed to her heart. At first, progress was barely noticeable. A finger twitched, a toe moved, small victories that seemed insignificant to anyone else. But to Chike and Ngozi, they were miracles. One morning, Chike's voice trembled as he called her over. Ngozi, my leg, it moved. Did you see that? Tears sprang to her eyes. Yes, sir. You're stronger than you think. We can do this. It was a delicate dance, balancing therapy, diet, encouragement, and most importantly, rebuilding Chike's hope. Ngozi found herself giving more than care. She was giving belief, and in doing so, her own heart quietly opened to the man society had abandoned. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, their bond deepened. Late-night conversations about dreams, childhood memories, and fears became their private world. Chike, who had trusted no one for years, found himself sharing stories he had locked away, stories of betrayal, loss, and shame. Ngozi, who had loved quietly, began to realize her feelings were deeper than duty or friendship. She loved him, truly. One rainy evening, as they stayed late working on a project together, Chike reached out, his hand brushing hers. Ngozi, you've changed my life, not just my body, but my heart. Her breath caught. Cheek. I feel the same way. I've tried to ignore it, but I can't. It was a dangerous love. Office rules forbade it. Society mocked it. But neither could deny the pull between them. As the closeness became noticeable, whispers turned into judgment. Some colleagues accused Ngozi of using him for money. Chike's relatives warned her to leave. Neighbors speculated. Friends advised her to reconsider. One afternoon, Chike's cousin confronted her sharply. Ngozi, leave my brother alone. You think we don't know your type? Ngozi stood firm, her voice unwavering. I don't love his money. I love him. Even if he had nothing, I would still stay. Her conviction moved Chike in ways words could not express. Against the tide of societal pressure, their love continued to grow. The real miracle came one quiet morning at Chike's apartment. Months of therapy, care, and relentless effort had led to a pivotal moment. Chike attempted to stand from his wheelchair. His legs trembled violently, muscles protesting after years of inactivity. Ngozi rushed to support him. Sir, take it slow. I'm here, she encouraged, voice shaken with anticipation. With a deep breath, Chike pushed, his legs holding for a moment. Then another, until he was standing, shakily but upright. Tears streamed down both their faces. For the first time in years, Chike felt whole. not just physically, but emotionally, and the walls around his heart collapsed entirely, swept away by the devotion Ngozi had shown. Months later, Chike walked confidently, still with slight assistance but strong enough to move freely. Their love no longer had to be hidden. Friends who had doubted them were silenced. Families who had rejected Ngozi were slowly persuaded by her unwavering care and love. They married in a quiet Lagos ceremony, attended by close friends and family, who had finally witnessed the power of devotion. The city that had once whispered about their scandal now celebrated their union as a testament to courage, patience, and faith. Ngozi and Chike's story became a legend in their circle. It was told not just as a tale of romance, but as a lesson. Love is patient. True devotion requires time, understanding, and sacrifice. Hope can heal. Even when society and circumstance say no, persistence can restore life and spirits. Judgment is fleeting. Character is lasting. Those who reject may never understand, but actions rooted in love withstand scrutiny. Chike often said, softly, Ngozi, you saved me not only from my body's prison, but from despair. You showed me that love is not about what others see. It's about what the heart knows. Ngozi would smile and say, and you taught me that courage comes in many forms, even when standing is the hardest battle. Some people are rejected by the world for reasons they cannot control. But love can defy expectation, heal wounds, and restore hope. Ngozi and Chike remind us that sometimes the person everyone overlooks is the one destiny has written for us. Against all odds, they married. What others rejected, God blessed. What society mocked, love redeemed. The lesson? True love is not about what the world sees. It is about what the heart chooses to see. So, tell us in the comments, who was your favorite character? What did you learn from this story of faith, courage, and love that refused to give up? And please, like, share, and subscribe to keep these powerful African stories alive. Sometimes, the person everyone rejects is the very one destiny wrote for you.